Hello, students. How are you? I hope that you are doing well. This is Dr. Mario Guzman. I'm going to be your professor for this class, Personal Growth. So I'm very happy, very excited, and I feel honored to have this opportunity to share with you the beautiful topics that we're going to be addressing during these 8 weeks that we have in front of us. We're going to be talking about personal growth, but especially on how the psychological theories that talk about personal growth, how do these theories understand this beautiful concept? We're going to also talk about how our physical, psychological, socio-emotional, and spiritual well-being are connected. And they are very important variables to try to explain also personal growth. Finally, we're going to talk about how can we grow after trauma? How can we experience growth out of trauma? Because many of us, we will have to experience sooner or later difficult experiences in life. But even when we go through adversity, it's still the opportunity to experience growth and to have a meaningful, beautiful experience in life, even after those difficult experiences in life, okay? All right, so with that said, I want to share with you the presentation for today's class. We have a very interesting topic today, which is existentialism or existential psychology. But before talking about that, I need to share with you information about your syllabus, about your bright space, and so on. So let me share this with you so we can work together on this presentation, and also that we can understand better what is expected from you in this class, okay? So let me turn on this, all right? And I hope I have the goal that today's class is gonna be no longer than an hour. I hope that I'm gonna be able to do that, okay? All right, so as I say to you, our class, it's called Personal Growth, APE Psych or Adult Psychology 201. And we're gonna be sharing, or I'm gonna be sharing with you these lectures, these lessons every week. I'm going to try to record something every week on Mondays morning or afternoon, as it is the case today, because it has been a very busy day. And then I'm going to upload this in my YouTube channel. And what I want you to do is that you watch the whole lesson, the whole lecture. And after watching the lecture, that you leave a comment in YouTube. In this first lesson, I would like to see 2 things in your comments. Number 1, I would like to know you better. I would like to know who you are. So if you don't mind, please share with us, who are you? Why is that you are in this program? Why is that you are interested in psychology and so on? And any other important information that you want to share with us, it's going to be very appreciated. So I can know you better. I can understand who my students are better, right? And number 2, I would like you to leave some initial thoughts about the class, about the content that we're going to be studying today, and so on, okay? When you participate in the YouTube videos, when you are leaving those comments in the comment section, that's going to count as your participation. That's going to count as your attendance in this class. So it is very important that in every video you leave a comment. It doesn't need to be too long, but neither too short, okay? But just for me to see that you watch the whole record, the whole video, and to see what are your thoughts about the content, what are you thinking about the topics that we're gonna be addressing, okay? And that's gonna work as your attendance for this class, all right? Okay, so having said that, oh, by the way, and don't worry, these videos are not public. I'm just sharing the link with you. No one else is going to watch these videos, or at least they are not going to read your comments. So feel free to share your thoughts there, that I'm not going to share that with anyone else. All right. Okay. So having said that, let's go to see what are going to be the topics for today's class. So first, it's an introduction to the class. Then we're going to talk about the syllabus and bright space. And then we're going to have an introduction to psychological models of growth. Okay, so let's start with number 1, introduction to the class. So first, you might be wondering, who is this Dr. Guzman? Who is this Dr. Mario Guzman? Well, I want to tell you, I'm a psychologist. I have a PhD in psychology. I have 2 master's degrees in psychotherapy. One is in CBT and the other one is in analytical psychology. And I also did my licenciate in psychology. Licenciate is it's the undergrad studies that we do in Mexico. I am originally from Mexico. I have been living here for 7 years. And I am married with my beautiful wife that you can see in the picture. Her name is Ana Sofia, and I have 3 kids. The oldest is Juan Mario, then Fatima, and then Bosco. And maybe you're going to be wondering, what is he doing here? Why is Dr. Guzman living here in the United States, right? Well, I came 7 years ago with my wife pregnant because we were looking for a second medical opinion. As you can see, my son is he's wearing some prostheses because he was born with a very difficult and very rare syndrome, which is called Cloves syndrome. And doctors think that he's the case 101 in history. So it's they just discovered this syndrome in 2008, and they are still learning about that. So long story short, we came for a medical opinion, and my wife was not able to go back to Mexico, so she had to stay here. The baby was born here. Then I came here to be with her. And well, you know, you have your plans, but God has his own plans for you, right? And what happened is that 7 years later, I'm still here working for Trinity Christian College, which is a blessing for me. It's a blessing to be in this beautiful country, to have these beautiful students that I have, and to work in this beautiful university. I need to be honest with you. I do miss my hometown. I do miss my family there. I miss my friends there. I miss my patients there because I was working as a psychologist and as a researcher in Mexico. But at the same time, I'm very thankful for being here, very thankful to see my son to be alive and my other 2 kids doing very well, and to see my wife happy, as you can see, all of them. This is a very recent picture. We took this picture in the summer in Madison, Wisconsin, beautiful city. So yeah, it's interesting to see that we can experience those 2 type of emotions that they seem opposite at the same time, right? I feel this sadness, or I feel this yearning, this desire of being in my hometown, but at the same time, I feel so lucky, so fortunate, so grateful living here in this beautiful country. And those 2 emotions, they cohabitate inside of me, inside of my soul, which is very interesting. So what am I doing here? As I said to you, I came for a medical appointment and things didn't work very well. So my wife stayed and I came here. And when my son was born, he spent his first 6 months of life in 4 different NICUs around the country. And not knowing what I would do at the time, the only thing that I had was my relationship with God and my relationship with my wife and my kids, right? So I asked God to help me to see what were his plans for me and my family. And very interestingly, he was opening windows for us. He opened a window for me to start working here first as a psychologist, and then I was invited to work here in Trinity Christian College and so on. So now what I'm doing here is to teach, to profess. I'm a professor now, and what I do is to profess the knowledge that we have in psychology, which is a beautiful area of study. It's a beautiful area of the science, and I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to share this information with my students. Okay, what are his thoughts on psychology and personal growth? Well, I think psychology is a beautiful science, a very complex science with a variety or a diversity of ideas, theories, and also topics that we are studying. From time to time seems that there's no consensus in many areas in psychology, that we have so many theories that it's difficult to know which is right and which is not right. We studied so many different topics, from sleeping patterns to psychopathology to human development, from love to intelligence, from how politics have an impact in human behavior and how human behavior has an impact in politics, how religion is impacting mental health and how mental health is impacting religion, and so on. So many different topics, so many different theories, which makes psychology one of the most fascinating sciences. At the same time, it's one of the most controversial sciences, and it's also responsible, at least partially, for the secularization that we are seeing in our society. So psychology, it can be an amazing tool that can help us to develop as humans and even get us closer to God, but also can be a science that if we don't understand it very well, if we don't apply it in the appropriate way, can help to some of the problems that we are seeing nowadays, especially with secularization. So now about personal growth. I think that personal growth, it's a possibility. Personal growth is a possibility for all of us. And I would say it's not only a possibility, it's an ongoing process. We cannot stop the process of personal growth. We grow physically, we grow emotionally, we grow psychologically, we grow spiritually. However, it's a process that has ups and downs. And sometimes those downs can be very difficult, can be difficult to bear with them. And suffering is part of human existence, is part of human experience. And sometimes suffering can be used either to promote that personal growth or to get stuck and having this feeling of not advancing, of not being advancing in this personal growth process. So that's why I think that this class is so important for me, because we're going to have the opportunity to think, to reflect, to try to find some answers, and also some opportunities and alternatives to human suffering. So I hope that you like that. Okay. With that said, now we need to go and visit your syllabus and your Brightspace. Perhaps some of you are not used to Brightspace. Perhaps others feel very comfortable with Brightspace. So what I want you to do right now, or what I'm going to do right now, is that I'm going to go to Brightspace as if I am a student, okay? And I'm going to show you where are you going to find all the information for this course, where are you going to find the syllabus, where are you going to find the content of the class, where are you going to find everything that you need to know about this, okay? All right, so here I have this link. And by the way, I'm going to share this presentation with you guys. It's just that it's still an ongoing presentation. I'm still working on it because I'm going to use this presentation also for our class on next Friday, and I still need to add some information, okay? So don't worry, you're going to have this presentation, but you can go to your Brightspace. I'm pretty sure that you all have the link to go to your Brightspace, right? That they provide to you an account. So I'm going to click here, and I'm going to go to our Brightspace page for this course. And you can see here, I'm going to click here. So I'm going to put as view as a learner. So you can see in the same way that you're going to interact with this page, this Brightspace page. So first, in the first page, you have, it's like an overview of the course. It's like an overview of the class. And you're going to find that here you have different buttons. You have the course home, which is where we are right now. Then you have the button of content. Here you're going to have everything week by week. Then you have the attendance in case that you want to see how are you doing. Remember, the way that I'm gonna mark your attendance is with the comments that you are leaving in your YouTube videos, okay, in these YouTube videos. Then you have the assignments here, and you can go here and you're gonna see all the assignments. For example, if you click here in assignment number 1, you're gonna find all the information for this. So it says complete activity number 1 on existential psychology, and you're gonna have that in the content page. Now, if you wanna go here, for example, assignment number 3, you're gonna have the instructions as well here, okay? Now, in the content area, you have that information as well. Every week, I have all the information that you need to know for what are we gonna see during that week and what are the activities that are expected for you. So here you have activity 1 and so on. All right, then you have the class list. I don't know if you can see that, but yeah, I think that you can see them and you can send email to me, to your classmates. Then here you're gonna see your grades, all right? Once that you start submitting your papers, you're gonna have here the points that you earn, and then you're gonna have your final grade as well. All right, so let's go to the course home again. Here, you have my CV in case that you want to take a look on it. You can just click here and it's got now download. And here you can see more about me and my work, the publications that I have. I didn't talk to you about that, but I am the author of 2 books. I am also the author of different papers, peer review journal papers. I'm also the author of chapters in different books, and I have worked in Mexico and in Europe. I did my studies both in Mexico and also in Europe, in Barcelona, and I had the opportunity to collaborate with many people there. All right, so there you have that. Then you can, this is important. You want to go and download your syllabus, okay? So let's see where's the syllabus here. And let's take a look on the syllabus so we can be in the same place that you have all the information that you require for your syllabus, okay? So let me open the syllabus from my download folder. It's gonna look better. All right, here. And I'm gonna make this bigger for you so you can have a better perspective. Now you have all this information. Again, you go to your Brightspace and you download this, all right? Right, my office, Vanderbilt Hall 033, Suite C. My email, mario.guzman @ sorry, that was in Spanish, at trnty.edu. And please send me an email whenever you need. I'm going to be happy to answer you. All right, here you have an introduction. Well, first, this quote from Zeno. Zeno was a great philosopher in Greece. He's the founder of a school of philosophy that is known as Stoicism. And he says, well-being is attained by little and little, and nevertheless, is not little thing itself. And I think this is the message that I want to transmit with you. Personal growth and well-being, it's an ongoing process. It can never stop. We need always to work on it. I know there are times that we prefer not to work on it. There are times that we are tired. There are times that life can be difficult. But even in those moments, it's important that we allow ourselves to have those negative experiences, to allow ourselves to have that experience of pain, suffering, or whatever it is, and try to connect it with a bigger, wider picture of ourselves and our personal growth process. So we can see even those moments as opportunities in our process of growing as human beings. All right, so dear students, I would like to welcome you to Psych 201. This is an online class, therefore every Monday I will upload a video with an explanation of the material and content we will cover. All right, so the material we will use uh, will be varied from films to recorded lectures and readings. The topics that we will cover in our class are: number one, the science of growth and flourishing. So we're going to talk today and next week about the theories behind growth and flourishing. Number two, physical care. Three, psychological self-care. Four, social self-care. And five, spiritual self-care. Six, family and parenting. And seven, post-traumatic growth. Okay, so those are the topics. All ideas are welcome. In my classes, there's no cancel culture. I encourage all my students to share their own ideas, their opinions, because I really want to know you better, understand you better. And I understand that there's always the risk of having different opinions when we engage in conversations. And that's okay for me. I want to have conversations with you guys. I want to have conversations with you where I can understand who are you? Why is that you are in the way that you are? What are the things that are important for you? What impacted on your life for you to be the way that you are? Every one of us is different. Every one of us is a singular individual, which makes us unique. And the way that we understand things, the way that we see life, it is important. So therefore, there's no groups here, or there's no political divisions. I always say to my students, I'm neither from the left or from the right. I am from above, because that's where Jesus wants me to be. And with that in mind, the information that I'm going to be sharing with you during these classes have that perspective, the perspective of having conversations, dialogues, to understand you better. And I'm going to do that with reading your comments, reading your papers, and so on, and also to be open to understand each other. All right. So let's go to see the important things about the syllabus here. First, the book that you're going to need to buy is Man's Search for Meaning, okay? You need to buy this book because you're going to read it through these 8 weeks, and you're going to have to submit a final paper with this book, okay? All right. Then there are other readings, these 4 readings. So reading number 1 and reading number 4, I'm going to provide it for you. And the reading number 2 and reading number 3, you just have to go and click there, okay? And you're going to have access to that information. So here are some websites that you might want to take a look on it. The International Society for the Science of Existential Psychology, Association for Humanistic Psychology, and Positive Psychology Center of University of Pennsylvania. All right, and now the official course, how did we grow and develop into the person we are today? How can we grow and develop into being the people that God has called us to be? All right, these are the 2 main questions that we'll be exploring in this course. The course will take a bio-psychosocial spiritual perspective on personal growth, including an examination of the relationship between attitudes, emotions, and behaviors. Major approaches to personal growth will be studied, and students will be required to reflect on their personal history and apply their learning to their own personal growth, okay? So as you can see, this is going to be an intent. The intention of this course is to integrate what we know from psychology that help us to grow as individuals, but also integrating our spiritual life or spiritual experience, so that we can have this. I don't want to use the word holistic because it sounds kind of new age, but this complete scenario where we are having in mind the body, the mind, our relationship with others, and of course, our spiritual life, okay? All right, so if you are not familiarized with the learning outcomes, please go and do that by yourselves. Also, the departmental learning outcomes, it is very important that you get familiarized with that, guys, okay? The objectives or the goals for this course: identify basic theories and concepts in personal growth, demonstrate an understanding of the interconnectedness of the various aspects of human person, biological, psychological, social, and spiritual, acquire skills that encourage personal growth and seriously engage in personal discipline. I hope to see that at the end of this class, okay? At the end of this semester, that you are engaged in serious discipline. All right. So, and this is the grading criterion. So you're gonna attendance and participation, 10 points. As I say to you, you just have to leave your message, your comment in every YouTube video that I'm gonna be uploading. And with that, I'm going to take your attendance, because that comment is telling me that you watched the video, that you are reflecting on the video. So, and the comment, what I want to see is precisely that, a reflection on the content of the video, okay? Then there are 6 different activities / assignments during these 8 weeks that we're going to have, and you have to submit a final paper. Right, so let's go to see what are these activities. The assignments, week number 1, complete activity number 1 on existential psychology. The document can be found on Brightspace. All right, so if you go again to your Brightspace, you go to content here, and this is week number 1. You see, you have all the weeks here on your left, and here you have assignment number 1. And here you have activity number 1. What's the difference? Well, here you're going to submit your paper, okay? And this is the activity. So here's the instructions. And as you can see, the document says it has 6 questions regarding the content that we're going to see today about existential psychology, okay? Once that you are done with this, you upload that in the section that in week number 1, as I mentioned to you. So let's go again to week number 1. Here in assignment, you have to upload or to submit your paper there, okay? Okay, let's continue with our syllabus. Week number 2, read readings 1, 2, 3, and 4, and submit a 3 long pages paper with your reflections on the existential, humanistic, and positive psychology models. So what are those readings, Dr. Guzman? Here you have reading number 1, 2, 3, and 4, okay? And the idea is that these readings are going to help you to understand better the 3 models that we're going to be working on in this class, which are existential psychology, humanistic psychology, and positive psychology, okay? Once that you read those papers, you're going to have to write your paper and submit your paper, 3 long pages, okay? You also have 3 videos here. I include the links here in case that you want to go and see experts in every one of these models explaining the model by themselves. It can help you to have a more accurate, more complete understanding of their models, okay? On week number 3, set some physical goals, workouts, sleeping patterns, and nutrition, and record their impact on your physical and psychological well-being. Share your goals and results with your professor, okay? On week 3, I'm going to explain you more about this, okay? Week number 4, take the VA survey of character strength and share the results via email with your professor. It's a great survey that is going to give you information about what are your characters, your strengths, and your character strengths, and also the virtues that you are strong and that you can work on them. Okay, it's very interesting. Okay, it's going to provide information for you. All right. Now, week number 5, participate in an altruistic cause and explain your experience in a 2-page paper. All right. As you can see, these activities are associated with the topics that we're going to be working together in every week. Number 6, week 6, every day set 10 minutes to practice the Jesus prayer and write down your experience and share it with your professor. I'm going to explain you what is the Jesus prayer, and I'm going to help you and I'm going to teach you how to conduct the Jesus prayer in your life. During that week, we're going to talk about the impact of our spiritual life and religious life in our psychological well-being and personal growth. And 7, across the 8 weeks of the course, read the book Man's Search for Meaning and submit a 4-page long paper with your reflections on its content. Try to answer the following questions. What was my experience while reading the content of the pages? What were the most impactful events shared in the book? After I have finished reading it, what are my thoughts on purpose and meaning in life? Have I learned anything about how to cope with difficulties in life? Right. It's a beautiful book. I'm going to talk more about this book in a moment. All right. Okay. So, and here you have the instructions on how to write. You have also a link that is going to help you to know better how to write with the APA style, which is important that you follow the instructions here. If you have any doubt about that, please let me know. And here you have the rubric on how am I going to grade your papers, all right? So okay, take a look on that. And again, if you have any doubts, please let me know. And this is a grading scale, okay? I hope to see only A's at the end of this class. But yeah, all right, we'll see. Okay, anything? Yeah, here, the schedule. Here you have everything that we're gonna cover week by week. You have, again, your activities here. So you have all the topics, all the activities what you have to do week by week. So there's no way that you miss information, guys. You have this on your Brightspace, on the content section week by week. You have it here in your syllabus. I have this section of assignments with due dates, and then you have the calendar here with due dates as well, and with the activities that you need to do and so on. So I hope that you can take a look on that, write down in your calendars everything that is important for this class so you don't miss any important date, okay? All right, so having said that, I'm gonna continue with a PowerPoint presentation. And I want to tell you a little bit about the book that you're gonna be reading. It's a beautiful book. One of the most beautiful and important books that I have read. It's difficult, right? When someone says, like, what's the most important book in your life? Oh, of course, the Bible, at least for me, it's the Bible. But beside the Bible, there are many books that have had a huge impact on me. But this one has a special place on my soul, on my heart. And it is because it's an intimate writing of a terrible experience that this guy had. Viktor Frankl, we're going to talk about him today, was one of the existentialist psychologists. He was a neurologist, and he was living in Austria. And I don't want to spoil the reading because I want you to let yourselves to be amazed by the writing of this guy, the stories that he is sharing here. But long story short, he ended up in the Nazi concentration camps, and all his family, his parents, his wife, his brother, they died in the concentration camps. But he survived. And not only he survived, he also found meaning there. He also found the important experiences that transformed his soul to develop his own psychological theory known as logotherapy. And the book is full of wisdom. And I'm pretty sure that when you read it, you look how I have it all there's a lot of notes and highlight sections, and I have all these quotes separate from the book because it's truly an amazing, honest, deep conversation on human nature. And I hope that the reading of this book can be as transformative for you as it was for me, that can help you to see yourselves and others with new lenses, with a deeper understanding on our human nature, on our shared human nature, and that can help to heal divisions, to heal wounds, to heal any painful that you have experienced with other humans, all right? So, and what I'm going to do is that every week I'm going to share one of the quotes that I have highlighted here. I hope that you also highlight your own quotes when you are reading this, and you can share those quotes with me in your papers or in your YouTube comments, or if you want to send me an email, because I think they are full of wisdom. And this is one of them. It says, "We have come to know man," with upper letter, because it's talking about man in generally speaking, like human beings, right? "As he really is. After all, man is that being who invented the gas chambers of Auschwitz," which, just have in mind, guys, that the World War II, it took around 60 million people. The amount of deaths, it was up to 60 million people, right? So it says, "After all, man is that being who invented the gas chambers of Auschwitz. However, he's also that being who entered those gas chambers upright with the Lord's Prayer of the Shema Israel on his lips." The Shema Israel is the most important prayer in the Jewish population, in the Jewish religion. And it's a prayer that it's a vote of trust with God. It's a way of saying, you know better, God. And what I really like about this quote is that Viktor Frankl, he was the victim of the Nazis. He was there. He suffered immensely. You will see when he talks about his experience there. He was in starvation for months. He saw his family being killed, his friends being killed. But he also saw that some of those Nazis, they were humans. All of them were humans, better say. And that some of those Nazis, they tried to help the youth. And then he also saw that some of the youths, they tried to help the Nazis. And he comes to a very important conclusion, and you can see that in this quote. What he's saying is, evil is not somewhere outside of ourselves. Evil is something that is inside of ourselves. As Christians, we call that original sin, right? Because of the fall of our parents, Adam and Eve, we all have that imprinted in us, that original sin, that tendency to evil. St. Augustine, he called it concupiscence. And it's that tendency to act according to evil, according to our sin, according to... but this quote is also telling us, he's also that being who entered to those gas chambers upright with the Lord's Prayer of the Shema Israel on his lips. What does this mean? That man is not only able to commit the most horrible evils as we have seen in human history, but that man is also capable of goodness, is capable of caring, is capable of loving, is capable of taking care of others. It's capable of trusting in God. And this is important to remember because we live in times where we are so divided. These times are very similar than the times of the World War II in Central Europe, guys. In many sense, on one hand, we trust a lot in our technology and our reason, and we believe that we are in the pinnacle of our development. On the other hand, we have a eugenic society as well, where we are promoting ways of killing such as abortion, euthanasia, based on gender, based on disabilities. Did you know that 50% of babies with disabilities are aborted right now here in Europe? In some countries such as Iceland or Finland, it's 100% of them. But there are other similarities on our time in comparison with that time. And one of those similarities is the political divided society that we are having nowadays. In that political divided society, we are doing the same mistake that they did. And that is to think that evil is something that is outside of you, that evil is something that belongs to others, but not to myself. And of course, those others are those who think differently than me. So the Nazis, they thought that evil was in the Jewish. And then the Jewish, they thought that evil was in the Nazis. And what happened when we have that perspective, as we are having it right now, when you see people in this political divided society that we have yelling each other, calling names each other, not being able to having conversations, just let's take a look on Twitter, right? Or on Facebook, and we will see what happened there. All this yelling each other, calling names and saying that you are this, you are this and that, using even mental diagnosis to attack people, right? And what is happening is that we are forgetting the same. Evil is not something that happens outside. Evil is something that happens inside. And this is a Christian message as well. When we think about Jesus, Jesus didn't came to change the society. Jesus came to change the individual. That's why Jesus was so committed to changing the heart, the conscious, the mind of individuals, because he knew that the real change in society only happens through individuals. But he also knew that because this original sin that we were talking, we all have the tendency to be murderers, to be killers, because that's part of my nature, that's part of human nature. That's what Viktor Frankl is telling us here. So I was once in church and they were singing a hymn. I can't remember the name of that hymn. It was a beautiful hymn. I am Catholic, but in that church they were singing this Protestant hymn from the gospel singing tradition, but this is from the 19th century, so it's an old hymn. And it's in the Good Friday. This is for the Good Friday. And the hymn is saying what people were doing when Jesus was killed. And what would I do if I were there? And the hymn is saying, I will kill you as well. And it's very difficult to assimilate this. It's very difficult to see ourselves as one of the killers of Jesus, as one of those Roman soldiers, or as one of those Jews that they were saying, kill him, or to see ourselves as Judas, right? It's very difficult to see ourselves like that because, again, we like to think that evil is something that happened outside instead of inside. But the other day I was reading a quote that says, Judas, he betrayed Jesus for 30 coins of gold. However, I betrayed Jesus for free. That's sin, right? Every time that we sin, we are betraying him. It's in our nature. But it is also in our nature to be as the apostles, to be able to work in ourselves and overcome that, not to deny that, but to overcome that and work for the good. And I hope that in these classes, the topics that we're going to be talking can help us in that direction. So if we ever been in with Jesus in the cross, that we can be as John or as Mary Magdalene, and that we can remain faithful with him in the cross, helping him, right? We'll see. All right. So let's go with the introduction of the psychological models, because I said to you that it will be 1 hour long, and I think that I better go faster. All right. Okay. So, today I'm going to talk to you about My goal is that we can talk a little bit about psychoanalysis, behaviorism, CBT, and then go deeper in existentialism. And what I have here for you is a schema or a graphic or whatever you want to call this on how psychology has been evolved. So we need to have in mind that psychology is a very new science, at least in the way that we know psychology or we understand psychology now. It is as old as Aristotle. Aristotle has a book that is called Anima, Soul, and his is probably the first book on psychology, right? But as an individual science, like an independent science, psychology has been around for 200 years, no more than that, perhaps 150 years or so. And within psychology, the part of clinical psychology, which is the area that deals with human suffering, is even newer. And the first models were the psychoanalysis. And at the same time, in different places, it was behaviorism. So we're going to talk a little bit about that, like psychoanalysis and behaviorism as the first psychological models that they try to talk about human development, human suffering, and also human potential. Then we're going to talk about CBT. It's newer. It's still the dominant model in psychology. But then we're going to talk about these three models: existentialism, humanistic psychology, and positive psychology. And you can see that I include existentialism and humanistic psychology below psychoanalysis, because most of their first authors, they come from that tradition. And then I place positive psychology below CBT because it has a lot in common with CBT. But we will talk about this in detail, okay? So today I'm going to be very fast with psychoanalysis, behaviorism, and CBT, because what these theories have in common is that they have been focused in suffering. They have been focused on what makes people to suffer, what makes people develop mental disorders, but they have not been as focused as on what makes people to flourish, what makes people to grow positively. It's existentialism, humanistic psychology, and positive psychology, the three models who have placed a huge emphasis on how humans can flourish and how humans can grow positively, to have this personal growth that is the main topic of a class, okay? So, but we need to have a brief understanding of these three models so we can understand where these other three models come from. And I hope that in your Intro to Psych class and your Lifespan Development class, you also cover this with more detail, okay? So here you have three characters. You have Sigmund Freud in the center, Carl Gustav Jung on the left, and Alfred Adler on the right. And these are the three main figures and also the three pioneers on what is known as psychoanalysis. Of course, Sigmund Freud was the first of them. And then Carl Gustav Jung and Alfred Adler, they were like his first disciples, his first students, and they helped him a lot to build the theory of psychoanalysis. But then there was a moment that they had different opinions than Sigmund Freud. And Sigmund Freud was a genius, guys. However, he was wrong in many things, as any person, right? And one of the areas that unfortunately characterized Sigmund Freud is that he was not open to discussion of his theory. He thought that his theory was pretty much perfect, and especially the elements of his theory regarding sexuality. And when Carl Gustav Jung and Alfred Adler tried to talk with him about this, he was not open to discuss that. And what happened is that they ended up building their own psychological schools, which are extensions of psychoanalysis, I will say. So for Freud, we're going to start with these topics. Freud is the first one in bringing the idea that infancy is connected with adulthood in psychological ways, that what happens in infancy is something that is going to have a consequence later on in our development and in our mental health. And therefore, when we are suffering, when we are developing mental health problems, we need to find the causes, the reasons of that in infancy. Now, that's a powerful statement, and he was partially right. Infancy is really important for human development. We develop our cognitive skills. We develop our understanding of ourselves, others, and the world. We develop our capacity to love and being loved, to socialize with others, to develop the strengths that we're going to require both physically and psychologically to open ourselves a way in life to be able to find our place in life. However, Sigmund Freud had the idea that what happened in infancy is going to be with you forever. And that's something that other schools are going to challenge, such as pretty much all the other schools, CBT, existentialism, humanistic, and so on. They're going to say, like, yeah, that was important. But we are not just the result of what happened in our infancy, in our childhood. We are also the result of the choices, the decisions that we make in our adult life. So then he was talking about psychosexual development. He was he thought that sexuality is something that happens gradually, that we take awareness of our sexuality gradually, and that we have to go through different stages of development in that psychosexual development. And that if things happen there, like if parents don't allow us to explore our sexuality in those different stages, that will have as well an impact in our mental health later on in life. He was also talking about the unconscious content, the idea that our mind has two different levels of awareness or consciousness. One is the unconscious and the other one is conscious. And in unconsciousness, or this unconscious, what he thought that it's conformed by all the experiences that we do not recognize, that they were painful, things that we experienced in our childhood, that they were painful, shameful, or that they do not, what's the word that I'm looking? They do not align with ourselves, with the image that we have for ourselves, and we put it in the unconscious. So we're not conscious about that, but they are still there. And because they are still there, they're going to have an impact in our development and in our mental health, right? So, for example, some of addiction problems, they might be unconscious content that has not been resolved, such as problems with our parents in childhood. Or, for example, anxiety, it might be the fear of knowing that we're going to die one day, but that we repress that information, that we repress that knowledge. And because we are not making that aware in our daily life, we develop a pathological anxiety and so on. Then he had the idea that the mind has three different levels: the id, the ego, and the superego. The id contains like our animal part or instincts, where aggression and pleasure have their place. The superego is the other extreme. It has all the internalized rules from our society and from our parents, those rules that says what is right and what is wrong. And the ego, it's where our identity, our sense of who we are resides, but also it's in constant tension between the id and ego, because id wants to leave these instincts, these impulses, these primitive forces such as pleasure and aggression, to release them to have life. But superego is saying, no, that's wrong. You cannot have sex with that person, or you cannot eat that food, or you cannot drink in that way, or you cannot just go and punch someone in the face, right? And there's tension between that. And the ego, as long as it's able to balance that tension, will keep the mental health of the person. But if not, mental disorders will happen, okay? And the ego has what it's called defense mechanisms that help to keep that balance that I was telling you. Now, that's like psychoanalysis in a nutshell, okay? If you want to know more about Sigmund Freud, I will suggest you read the book that it's called Interpretation of Dreams. That's where he presents a more coherent, consistent explanation of what is psychoanalysis from his perspective. But let's talk a little bit about Carl Gustav Jung. He says, like, wait a minute, Freud, it's not all about sex. It's not all about repression. It's not all about past traumas. Humans have a tendency to the future as well. We are oriented towards the future. And humans have more than sexuality. Humans have religion. Humans have connections. Humans have culture. Human has evolved through millennials, through culture and religion, building symbols that help to keep our mind stable, in balance, and that we can perfect ourselves. He was talking about the process that is known as individuation, which is assuming who you are, accepting who you really are, accepting all the flaws, all the difficulties, all the painful areas in your life, and accepting that you are an individual, that you are able to conciliate pain and suffering, that you are able to conciliate good and evil, again, inside of us, not outside of us, that you are able to conciliate that inside of you, there's potential for growth and also potential for destruction. But Freud was not happy with Carl Gustav Jung, and they split. Now, Carl Gustav Jung is one of my heroes, okay? Also, I have many areas that I disagree with him, but he was a genius as well. If you want to know more about him, you can read a book that it's called, let me see if I have it here, Sueños, Recuerdos y Pensamientos. I'm saying it in Spanish, right? But in English, it's called, dreams, remembering, reflection, something like that, maybe. But if not, that is like his biography. It's a beautiful biography. But if not, you can also read a book that is called Man and His Symbols. Let me show you that book. I have it somewhere here. Man and His Symbols. It can be also a useful reading for you guys if you want to know more about Carl Gustav Jung. And then Alfred Adler, he's known as the father of the individual psychology, okay? He also split from Freud because he was also saying, like, Freud, you are too obsessed with sex. There are other things that we need to contemplate in human behavior, in human development. And he was especially interested in the inferiority complex. He's an important figure here in Chicago because there's an Alfred Adler School of Psychology, right? Okay, so he's the father of individual psychology. Now, having said that, let's go with behaviorism. As you know, I don't know if you know these two figures, but the first one is Ivan Pavlov, this guy here with the beard. He was from Russia, and he developed the concept of classic conditioning, which means it's a way of learning through association of stimuli. Perhaps you remember his experiments with the dogs and the bell and the food and the salivation, right? That's classical conditioning. For example, people can be, that they have a traumatic event such as rape. They are raped, and suddenly there's the sound of a train close, passing by where they were raped. And what happened later on, maybe months or even years, when they are safe with people that they love, but suddenly they hear a train, that it's producing the same sound that at the time of the violation, the rape, what it's going to happen is that the person is going to re-experience, it's going to have those symptoms again, right? That's a form of classic conditioning. There was a guy who was Watson. He present there's a very cruel experiment. It's known as the Little Albert experiment, where he's showing how through classical conditioning you can develop phobia in a little kid as young as 6 months old of life. It's a very sad experiment to watch, but at the same time, it was a confirmation that classical conditioning is a way to develop some mental disorders. But then the other gentleman here is Skinner. Skinner, he was an American psychologist, and he developed a different theory, a complementary theory that is known as operant conditioning. And this operant conditioning, what it says is humans learn through the consequences of their behavior. What are those consequences? 3 types: reinforcement, punishment, and extinction. Reinforcement is when something positive, something that the person finds desirable happens after the behavior. Punishment is when something negative, something that the person don't want happens after the behavior. And extinction is when the behavior is neither punished or reinforced. Now, what happens, according to this theory, is that reinforcement is going to increase the frequency of the behavior, and punishment is going to decrease the frequency of the behavior. So perhaps you have seen how people train their dogs, right? They train their dogs giving them treats, sit down, and they help the dog to sit, and then they give a cookie. And then they do that for 5 or 10 times. And then they do the same, but without helping the dog to sit down. And it's only until the dog that sits down that they give the cookie. And then they continue doing that for a longer period of time until the dog is doing that like automatically. Actually, the dog is already losing interest on what is happening there. Now they just say the command without the cookie, and the dog is still sitting down, right? Well, that's operant conditioning. And if you think about it, there are many things that we learn in that way. We learn to speak through operant conditioning. We learn to drive through operant conditioning. We learn to write through operant conditioning. And we learn to many of the social things, interactions through operant conditioning. Now, having seen, after saying that, behaviorism was, and also psychoanalysis, they were reductionist theories, especially behaviorism, given behaviorism was not given any room for the internal life. They saw humans as just objects that they are reacting to management contingencies, the way that we are providing these reinforcements, this punishment, or these extinctions. They didn't see man, human beings. When I'm talking about man, I'm in this plural where it includes both men and women. They didn't see man as someone who was capable to choose, to have a will, to have a meaning and purpose in life, which is very unfortunate because we are all that, right? However, behaviorism was important because it allows us to understand elements of our human nature, that we are still animals and we are still reacting to that. Now we have to move to CBT. And what happens in CBT is that these authors, you are seeing these 2 guys, Aaron Beck and Albert Ellis, they were not happy, neither with psychoanalysis, neither with behaviorism. They thought that psychoanalysis provides some important elements as understanding that humans, they have an inner life, that it's promoting behavior, that it's promoting experiences. And they also saw that behaviorism was having an important element saying that humans react to the context, and through that experience with the context, they are learning, and that if we change the context, humans can change. But they thought that neither these two theories separately were able to propose an understanding of not only why humans develop mental disorders or suffering, but how are we not are going to help them in an effective way to overcome those difficulties, to overcome those painful experiences in life. So these two guys are the founders of CBT, Aaron Beck from University of Pennsylvania and Albert Ellis from New York. And basically what they are telling us is that in every situation, we humans, we have thoughts, ideas about those situations. We are saying something to ourselves. Sometimes it's positive, sometimes it's negative. But beyond if it's positive or negative, sometimes it's rational and sometimes it's irrational. And for rational, I mean objective, something that we can corroborate. And for irrational is something that it's not objective, something that we cannot corroborate. And rational thinking helps us to cope with life, to cope with adversity, to achieve our goals in life. But irrational thinking increase suffering and pain, because instead of helping us to achieve our goals in life, it's getting us apart from them. And those thoughts are the reason of why we feel, we behave, and we have the psychological reactions that we have. So for example, if you have phobia to a dog, you might see the dog and you're going to experience a huge increase of anxiety, right? And you're going to say something like, I'm afraid of dogs. But that's not true from a CBT perspective. You are not afraid of dogs. What happened is that you are reacting to dogs. You are reacting to dogs through your thinking, through the ways that you are saying to yourself. Perhaps you think that dog is going to attack me. I'm powerless. I cannot defend myself. It's going to chase me or something like that. And because you are saying those things to yourself that are actually unlikely to happen, and that if happen are likely that are not going to be as bad as you are thinking, but because you are saying that to yourself, you are activating your anxiety. And with your anxiety, what you are doing is that you are having also physical reactions such as heartbeat, sweating, dry mouth, trembling, and perhaps you are having reactions, behavioral reactions as well. Perhaps you run away from the dog, right? So what they say is the problem are neither the situations, neither the reactions that you have. The problem are the things that you are saying to yourself. And you need to learn to distinguish what are you saying to yourself. So, and you might be wondering, and why is that we say those negative, irrational things to ourselves? Well, they talk about two important elements. One, we all have what is known as cognitive distortions or cognitive biases. We don't perceive reality as it is, but we perceive reality through lenses that they don't help us to have an accurate perspective, such as mind reading, when we think that we know what other people are thinking about ourselves, or dichotomous thinking, all or nothing thinking. It's either good or it's bad. Remember what we were talking about, the political division? Oh, those on the left are bad, and those on the right are good, or those on the left are good, and those on the left are bad. No, it's not as simple, right? And many other distortions or biases, right? But also they talk about something that are known as cognitive schemas. These cognitive schemas are the structures which the mind used to operate, the structures which the mind used to interact with ourselves, with others, and the world. And these structures, these are like very core beliefs. These are ideas that they are fundamental for us about who am I, who are the others, and how the world is. And these are developed in infancy, in childhood, through the experiences with our parents, with our peers, with our culture, with our society, and the traumatic events as well. And there are cognitive schemas that they are adaptive, they help us to cope with life, and cognitive schemas that they are not. And those who are not, They are the reason, the cause of why we develop mental disorders. All right? Okay, that's CBT in a nutshell. We talk about psychoanalysis, we talk about behaviorism, and we talk about CBT. And each of these traditions are different. They share some things in common, but they are different. They belong to different authors, to different times in history, but they have something in common. They all are talking about human beings from the negative side, from the pathological side, why humans develop depression, why humans develop anxiety, why humans develop addiction and so on, and what can we do to help them. But they are not talking, at least not with an emphasis on how humans can flourish, how humans can develop the best version of themselves. Perhaps the exception is Carl Gustav Jung with his concept of individuation, okay? But generally speaking, psychoanalysis, behaviorism, and CBT, they don't focus on the bright side of human beings. They don't focus on the potentialities of human beings. And that's where the three main models of personal growth that we're going to study come to in scene. They come to play, or they have something to say. Existentialism, humanistic psychology, and positive psychology. Okay, I promise to you that this will be a 1 hour long video, but it seems that it's not going to be the case. You can make a pause here if you want. You can go and have a snack, something, and then you can come back so we can talk about existentialism. All right, so let's start talking about existentialism, existential psychology, or existential psychotherapy. Either way is okay, all right? So the first thing is that you are watching here three gentlemen in the presentation. The one in the middle, his name was Martin Heidegger. He was not a psychologist, he was a philosopher. He wrote this book that it's called Being and Time. And for some authors, Martin Heidegger was the most important philosopher of 20th century, okay? He can be considered as the founder of existentialism. Now, you might be wondering how this philosophy of existentialism ended up becoming existential psychology or existential psychotherapy. Well, there are two things that you need to have in mind. Number one, every school of psychology, every school of psychotherapy, it's based on a specific or particular philosophy. So, for example, CBT is based on Stoicism. Behaviorism might be based on pragmatism and also rationalism, okay? So every school of psychotherapy, every school of psychology has its roots in different schools of philosophy. And that's the case of existential therapy. But I would say the difference between existential psychology and the other schools of psychology is that you can see that there's like a continuum. It's like if the existential philosophy become psychotherapy. So what these authors were doing, it was philosophy in action, okay? That's a way of putting it, philosophy on action. All right, so Martin Heidegger was the first existentialist. Well, before him, there was other people such as Soren Kierkegaard, Friedrich Nietzsche, or writers such as Dostoevsky, that they were very important pioneers of what later become existentialism, okay? But we want to have in mind that existentialism is not only a philosophy and then a psychology or psychotherapeutic school, but it's also something that it was transmitted, it was transported to other disciplines such as literature, arts in general, painting, sculpturing, and of course, movies, films, and so on, right? So having said that, I want to explain you about the influence of Martin Heidegger and how his ideas of this amazing book that it's called Being and Time, which, by the way, very difficult, deep, complex book with a lot of neologisms. I will suggest you to read it, but you're going to need a good cup of coffee and like a very deep, intense concentration, because one of the things that Martin Heidegger was saying is we cannot express with language what we experience with our existence. And think about it. If I ask you, do you love your husband? Do you love your wife? Do you love your son? Do you love your daughter? Perhaps you're going to say, yes, I do love them. And I'm going to tell you, can you explain that love? It's very difficult, right? Words are limited in comparison with the experience that we are having with our existence. If you are having depression, if you want to kill yourself because you are that depressed, and I told you, are you depressed? Perhaps you're going to say, yes, I am depressed. And if I tell you, can you explain your depression? That's going to be more difficult. How is to be depressed for you? Perhaps you're going to say, I'm tired, I feel a lack of energy, I don't enjoy things anymore. Okay, is that all? And we will realize that no, it's not all. The experience is bigger than what we can express without words, right? So that was one of the reasons of why this book, Being and Time, is so complex, because Martin Heidegger was trying to express something that it's difficult to express. By the way, it's a book where he explained what is being, and we're going to talk about that in a moment. So when people read existentialists, they have like this expression, like this experience of, this is too difficult. I don't know if this is poetry, this is philosophy, this is psychology, or what is this? Maybe it's a combination of all that, because they were using words to try to express what you can only experience with your existence, which is very complex. All right, so Martin Heidegger, he wrote that book, and very soon his ideas become very important. And because of that, some psychologists of his time, they found his ideas very interesting. So in the handout that I share with you in your Brightspace, you're going to see a list of prominent existentialist figures. Now I should say prominent existentialist figures in psychology, because this doesn't include literature. As I say to you, Dostoevsky, for example, he was a great existentialist, and he was even before Martin Heidegger, right? By the way, I strongly suggest you to read him. One of the best writers of all the times. He has an amazing book that it's called Crime and Punishment. It's a masterpiece, All right. But here you're going to see these names, Ludwig Binswanger and Mederbos. These two psychiatrists, they found ideas of Martin Heidegger so interesting that they were the first mental health practitioners that start using Heidegger's ideas in psychology, in mental health problems, in psychotherapy, and so on. But then we have Rollo May. Rollo May, he was an American psychologist, and he had a book that it's known as Love and Will. And he's one of the pioneers of existentialist therapy here in the United States. Also, Paul Tillich, he was a theologian, German-American theologian, a Protestant Lutheran theologian, and he became one of the central pieces of the American existentialism. And it's very interesting because he was also one of the most important theologians of his time, okay? Then we have Irving Yalom. which perhaps some of you have heard about him. He was very popular because he has been writing books, not only for counselors, psychologists, and so on, but also for public in general, both fiction and nonfiction. And he's still alive. He's an emeritus professor of psychiatry at Stanford University. And then we have Viktor Frankl, who was the founder of logotherapy, that I already talked to you about him, and that we're going to talk about him more, and that you're going to be reading his book, and you're going to write about his book and so on, all right? Okay, so now in the presentation, you see that I didn't include many of the authors that I was mentioning, but just Heidegger, Rollo May, and Viktor Frankl. And the reason of why I brought only the pictures of these three guys is because the ideas that I'm going to be sharing with you, they come from these three guys, okay? This is how I am trying to understand existentialism. I need to tell you, I'm not an expert on existentialism. I am an expert in CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, but I found existentialism as a very interesting, both philosophy and school of psychology. So I really like it. And I especially enjoy Viktor Frankl for obvious reasons. Once that you finish reading his book, you're going to be, I'm pretty sure that you're going to be like me saying, oh, that was a good reading. All right, so let's try to understand some of the central features of existential psychology. Now, I need to tell you something. Any existentialist will be upset with me for what I am doing here with you guys. Existential psychotherapy, existential psychology tries to understand, it's trying to understand the experience that the individual has in his encounter with the world of phenomena. What is phenomena? Well, phenomena, it's the plural of phenomenon. And one of the ways to interpret phenomena or to understand phenomena has to do with a very complex concept proposed by Martin Heidegger. He called it Dasein. Okay, this is in German. My German is horrible. There's a saying that says that English is to do business, French is to talk about love, German is to talk to your horse, and Spanish is to talk with God. Now, I don't know if that's true or not, but what I'm saying is that German is a difficult language, and my pronunciation is horrible. All right, so, but this Dasein it's a concept developed by Heidegger, which we could translate it in being there or being in the world, okay? This means that for Heidegger, we have been thrown into the world of phenomena. What does that mean? Well, first means we didn't ask to be here. We didn't ask to be alive. We didn't ask to be born. But we are here. We don't have an alternative. We don't have an option. Well, we do have an alternative, and we will see that in a moment, which is non-existence, right? But we exist here. And here, we're going to encounter a world full of phenomena. What is that phenomena? So the etymology of phenomena, it's from the late Latin, phenomenon, and from Greek, phenomenon. That which appears or is seen in philosophy, an appearance or immediate object of experience. So think about this, guys. We have encounters with objects, with people, with situations. And we don't really know what they are. So, for example, you can say a car, it's a car, right? And from a very objective point of view, it's true. A car is a car. And perhaps we can talk about what constitutes a car? It has four wheels, it has an engine, it has brakes, it has acceleration system and brake system. It has space where you can sit down and you can use that car to move from one point to other point. And you're going to need some type of energy that can promote the movement of that object, that vehicle in which you're going to travel, right? So we could say that that is a car. But a car is more than that. A car can be also freedom. Freedom to go from one place to other. It can be also excitement. The excitement of driving fast in the highway in a sunny day. Or a car can be a tragedy as well. An accident in a highway where your loved ones die. Or a car can be a form of slavery, a form of stress in life, right? Some of the people who I talk that they drive an Uber, they say to me at the beginning it was fun, but after so many years driving a car all day long for 9, 10, 12 hours, I feel like I'm a slave of my car. So you see, what this phenomena is, and what this doesn't mean, is that we are thrown in a world of objects, people, and experiences, that they have meaning. And from a scientific perspective, and this is true for behaviorism and CBT that we talked before, we like to think about the world of objects and the world of the subjects. And then what happened is that the subject used the object, therefore the subject can manipulate the object, and the subject can study the object, and the subject can be independent of the object, right? That's the scientific perspective in general. But from an existential perspective, that doesn't exist. From a phenomenological perspective, that doesn't exist. What they say is there's the objective world and the subjective world. They are interconnected. The car is a car because there are humans that they have meaning and purpose in that machine. Without humans, that machine will not exist. But think about money. You can say, well, money is just a piece of bill, right? With ink on it, with some signs on it. However, money is more than that. Money is possibility. Money is the opportunity to go to a restaurant, to go and buy a car, to go and buy a house. It's more than a piece of paper, a piece of bill with ink on it. Money is also the source of suffering for many people. Money is also the source of betrayal, wars, and many other things, right? People have killed for money. People have ended up their lives for money. People have ended up their marriages for money. So money, that bill, that piece of paper with ink, is more than a piece of paper than ink. That's what the existentialists are saying. Money is also the meaning that money has by itself and the meaning that we are given to it. And that's Dasein. We come to this world and we have experiences with objects, people, and experiences. And we start building meaning on that. And we are constrained to a particular moment in history, a particular moment in time and space, that it's limiting our experience of Dasein, of being in the world, okay? It's limiting that experience of being in the world because it is not the same to be born in Mexico, learning Spanish with the characteristics of the Mexican society, than being born in the United States, speaking English with the characteristics of the American society. That's why now that I'm here and I'm trying to adapt, right, to the American culture, there are things that are so difficult for me. Because from an existential perspective, my past do not determine who I am. But my past is part of my being in the world, and I cannot deny that. My past is part of what builds meaning for me in the experiences that I have in life. So being in the world is related with past, present, and future. Is related with how our experiences with objects, people, and situations. It's related with the meaning that we bring to those objects, peoples, and situations. And there's something more interesting. Our past helps us to understand our present. But as animals, we are oriented towards the future. So those experiences that constrain us because we were born in a specific place, in a specific time, in a specific moment of human history, it doesn't keep us there because we have the possibility to choose moving forward. We have the possibility to orient ourselves to future. Being, what is being, right? Okay, because we said that Dasein is being there or being in the world. And what is being? Well, being is not something like a being, but it's rather what determines beings as beings. So I'm a human being, you're a human being. But there's something that we can call being, that is like the nature of what a human being is, okay? And that being, which you and I, we could say we are perhaps a representation of that being, we are perhaps the product of that being, we are perhaps the expression of that being. Well, that being includes the good and the bad, the pleasure and the suffering, the positive and the negative, the misery and the richness, human health and human illness, mental health and mental disorders. What we see in others, it's also in us. Either we realize of that or not, but it's within us. Have you seen the yin yang, that oriental figure which with a white and black section? And the black section includes a white dot, and the white section includes a black dot. Because that's being. Being is the expression of everything that is possible in particular beings. So it's in our nature. Existence. What is existence? It's an implicit interpretation of what is to be the kind of being it is. It is. So you need to have in mind that Existentialism is a philosophy and then a school of psychology that it's developed after the World War I and World War II. What happened in World War I and World War II was the deception of human society, the deception of enlightenment, the confrontation with those areas that we deny as a humanity and also as individuals. Martin Heidegger, many of these philosophers and psychologists, they come from Germany and from Russia. And these both countries, they experience two forms of horrible totalitarian criminal political systems. On one hand, Nazism, and on the other hand, communism. And what happened is that even though at the time Europe was in the pinnacle of enlightenment, with all the technology, all the science, all the academia, all the culture, all the philosophy, even though they were able to commit the worst atrocities ever seen. It is estimated that more than 60 million of people died in the Second World War. And for these people, these philosophers and psychologists, they realized something. Humans, we have lost something important. We have lost meaning. We have lost the purpose of our existence. And why is that they lost that? Or maybe why is that the purpose and meaning that people were trying to achieve at the time had such a catastrophic consequences? Well, think about it. Existentialists, they are concerned about death, isolation, suffering, pain, but also with flourishing, growth, authenticity, meaning in life. And who was in charge of that for the whole human history? It was religion. Religion was the one who was providing answers. And not only answers, also ways to cope with those experiences, those givens, that's how they call it. The Buddha, he said, after 7 years of meditation and achieving enlightenment, he said his famous Four Noble Truth speech. And the first noble truth is life is suffering. Then Jesus, the night before he's dying, he's in the Gethsemane and he's asking his dad, please, if possible, that I don't take this cup. I don't want this. He was in anguish. He was in anxiety. He was bleeding blood. And then he died in the cross in one of the most horrible ways. But think about that. If I am a human that I'm suffering and I see God, that he himself made himself a person, a human being, with a divine nature, but with a human nature. And he also was rejected. He also suffered injustice. He also experienced pain and suffering with the death of his friend. He also experienced what is hungry. He also experienced the emotions, and he also experienced betrayal by his brother, by his disciple. And he was abandoned in the worst of the moments of his life. Abandoned. Just John and the two Marys at the cross. No one else. Not only that, the rest of the people, they were cheering, right? Yeah, kill them, kill him, kill him. And he was abandoned. But even though he was abandoned, he was able to overcome death. and resurrection happen in a glorious body. Such a powerful message, such an existential, powerful message, right? Which is telling us life is suffering. Life is full of betrayal. Life is full of suffering. Life is full of challenges, adversities. But even in there, there's opportunity, possibility, meaning, purpose. So people were having that in religion. But what happened in 20th century is that Europeans, they thought that they were better than religion. They thought that now they had reason, technology, and science. Therefore, they don't need religion anymore. But when you remove religion, what is left is a vacuum, an empty space that is going to be filled with other things. And what was that? Totalitarianism. The expression of rationality and government in an abusive way. And both in Germany and in the Soviet Union, the consequence was disastrous. And they both were utopias. They both thought that they were the ideal society. We finally remove religion. And now what is left is reason, progress. But what happened is that even without religion and with all your power, all your reason and progress, you're still going to die. You're still going to get ill. You're still going to suffer in life. Who's going to provide explanations for that? So the existentialists, they are saying, you are thrown in this world where there are all these possibilities of suffering, but also of happiness. But you need to make something with them. You need to find purpose and meaning. So existence is the way that I interact with all that. It's the way that I perceive, that I think, and that I do. And every one of us is unique. Every one of us has their own story, their own experiences, and every one of us, therefore, has their own existence, our own way of perceiving, thinking, and doing. And we should say, we are the best possible version of ourselves so far with what we have been able to do. But I said so far, because there's still room to change, to improve. And we will see that in a moment. Existentialists, they have an ideal that humans should achieve or conquer. But before going that, existentialists, they say that there are three levels of existence: unwealth, mid-wealth, and end-wealth. Unwealth is being in nature, okay? Is ourselves in relation to biological and physical aspects of our world, including our body, including the bodies of other people, including the forest, including the air, including the sunlight, including the breeze, including the cold weather, the warm weather, the rain. How do we relate with that? Mid-wealth, being with others, the world of persons, the social world. We are social animals. We are not like the cats that they like to be alone by themselves. On the contrary, loneliness is poisonous. Loneliness, it's a killer for humans. We need others. We need the interaction with others. But sometimes the interaction with others is painful. Sometimes it is not. Sometimes can help us to grow. Sometimes can help us to stuck and suffer. Your experience, your mid-wealth experience is different than my mid-wealth experience. Your being with others is different than my being with others. And there's no point of comparing yours with mine, because yours is a result of your DNA, your historical and geographical place where you were born, your sex, if you're a female or male, your level of education, your experience with your parents, with your peers, your childhood experiences. Therefore, why should I compare myself with you if there are so many things that makes us different? But at the same time, we share 99.5% of our DNA. At the same time, we are part of the same species, the human race. At the same time, you and I are humans, and both know what is love and suffering, joy and pain. And then the third way of existence is Eigenwelt, which is being for oneself. It's the way we reflect on, evaluate, and experience ourselves. So we have these three levels of existence, three levels of interacting, three levels of being with the nature, with others, and with ourselves. And each one of them has different meanings, different experiences, and therefore different outcomes. Then, this is a beautiful concept, authenticity. Let me read for you. Openness to nature, to others, and to ourselves. Choosing to meet with the world straight on without hiding it from us or us from it, without hiding it from us or us from it. The authentic life is based on an accurate appraisal of the human condition and a fulfillment of one's potentialities. A person is authentic to the degree to which that person's being in the world is unqualifiedly in accord with the givenness of his or her own nature and world. The only value a person must follow to become authentic is to be honest, even in the face of nothingness. What makes you be who you are? Is your DNA? Is the color of your skin? Is your sex? Is the place where you were born? Is your language? Is your experiences? Is the way how you cope in life? Is what you say, or is what you do in life? What makes you be who you are? To be authentic, to be open to nature, to others, and to ourselves. But this sounds beautiful, but it's very complicated, because we're going to see in a moment that we have learned to lie others, to lie to ourselves. We have learned to complain, to do what others want. We have learned that because we are social animals, we're going to be judged by others. And we have learned to judge ourselves. We have learned that there are experiences that are positive and experiences that are negative. And then we have a tendency to avoid those that we consider that are negative and to look for those who we consider that they are positive. And then we realize that being in the world, in interaction with the world of phenomena, with the objects, with the people, with experiences, is different for us than for other people. So when you stop hiding from the world, and when you stop avoiding the world, when you can be yourself at the time of being with others, without stopping being you, that's authenticity. And that's the ideal. That's personal growth from existential perspective. However, they also consider that authenticity is on threat constantly by something that they call existential anxiety. What does that mean? Well, being implies non-being. So I am alive, but I know that I'm going to die. I am healthy, but I know that one day I'm going to get ill. I have kids, but I know that one day I'm going to lose my kids. I have a wife, but I know that one day my wife and I are going to be separated. And what happens is that being and non-being, what happens is that we deny that non-being, that we try to avoid that non-being, that we realize about that non-being only when it has hit us in our face, a punch in our face, such as COVID. COVID has been a non-being experience, a collective non-being experience. So many deaths, so many struggles, so many financials breaks, so many business that have closed, so many people who have lost their way of life. Non-being has made itself present in our life. And the consequence is that we have people with anxiety, depression, substance abuse. They don't know what to do with that. They don't know what to do with suffering. As I was telling you, our time, it resembles very much to the times of Germany before World War II. They also thought that they had everything. Thankfully for us, it has been a pandemic and not a World War III, not having bombs, having destruction around us by violent actions committed by other people, right? So this existential anxiety is the realm of non-being. It's death, isolation, meaningless, and responsibility of making life-altering decisions, finiteness. All these are known as existential givens. We all are going to have to experience these existential givens. Sooner or later, your loved ones are going to die. You are going to die. Sooner or later, you're going to have to ask yourself if your life has meaning or not. Sooner or later, you're going to have to ask yourself about isolation, responsibilities, making decisions in life. And every decision implies taking something and rejecting something, being and non-being. If I decide to go to college and study psychology, I am rejecting studying mathematics or music or history. If I decide to be married, I'm choosing one person at the same time that I am excluding all other possibilities, being and non-being. If I decide to be professor, I am not many other things. So our decisions, they have consequences for being and non-being. And all this existential anxiety is behind human suffering. Existentialists, they will say that in the face of those existential anxieties, the realm of non-being, we have learned to lie. Lying is the foundation of psychopathology, mental disorders, depression, anxiety. Lying enables us to flee from dread of non-being, to not allow existential anxiety into our experience. But non-being is omnipresent, threatening to intrude into consciousness. Lying is part and parcel of inauthenticity. Remember what I said to you about the Buddha, the Four Noble Truths, and that the first noble truth was life is suffering. It's the same statement here. It's the same statement here. Non-being is omnipresent. Sooner or later, we all are going to experience non-being. We are in being and non-being all the time. But what does this mean about lying? We learn to lie, and psychopathology is a result of lying. This is not a moral condemnation, but we have learned to lie to others and we ourselves. We choose our lies and are stuck with their consequences. Psychopathology is objectification of ourselves. We are trapped as a consequence of our own lies. A person who's depressed is going to tell you, no one loves me. I am a terrible person. I am good for nothing. It will be better to be dead. Well, that is a lie. There are people that they love them. They are good for something. At least to be alive, which is not a minor thing. It's very complicated to be successful just to be alive. Think about it. There are many reasons of why we should be dead. By natural consequences, illness, accidents, but also by our own decision, suicide. The question is not why people suicide. The question is why people don't suicide, don't kill themselves. When there's so much pain, when there's so much suffering, when there's so much adversity in life. So when you learn to lie to yourself and learn to lie to others, what happens is that those lies, they're going to become you. Lying is a way of presenting yourself. And the way that you present yourself, sooner or later, become part of your being. There are two levels of lying. Lying for others and lying for ourselves. And that lying for others are the things that we say to be accepted, to be loved, to be appreciated for others, even when we know that they are not true. For example, perhaps you are saying to someone, when you go to a job interview and they ask you, can you tell us what are your areas of opportunity? And you present a version of yourself that you know that it's not true. Perhaps you know that you have problems with time management, but you say that you are very responsible with time. What have you done now? Well, you're going to have to live with the consequence of that. Because now you have two options. Either you become really good in time management, or you're going to let others to see that you lie. And you know what is going to happen when others see that you lie? You're afraid that they are not going to love you, that they are not going to trust you. So people then continue lying. Oh, I'm sorry, I was late because there was a terrible car accident. Oh, I'm so sorry. Something happened with my schedule, my calendar, it's not working well, and I didn't see the meeting that we had. Oh, I apologize. I was doing everything to be on time, but, I received this call and I had to fix something. Then you are building a snowball that is going to end up as an avalanche. And you're going to suffer that consequence. Because now you're going to be anxious every time that you go to your job. Now you are not going to be able to recognize yourself. To what extent is your real you there? Or is the you that you have present to others the one that is there? And same thing happens with lying to ourselves. Sometimes we lie to ourselves saying things such as, I am a terrible person. I am stupid. How stupid of me of doing that. Sometimes we lie to ourselves in the other direction. I can do whatever. I can be a president of the United States. And we have seen what happens with politicians believing that they are fit to the charge. And I'm talking here from both sides, left and right. We can lie ourselves. And what happens when we lie ourselves, we stop being authentic. And when we stop being authentic, we can end up not knowing who we are, developing depression and anxiety. Intentionality is the creation of meaning, the basis of our identity. Through lying, we lose personal direction. We lose intentionality. So you have intentionality in one hand and lying on the other hand. Intentionality is going to help you to be authentic. Lying is going to help you to be inauthentic. Intentionality is going to help you to be strong, to be able to face adversity. It doesn't mean that your life is going to be ideal, perfect, but it means that with intentionality, you're going to be able to face your problems. Nietzsche used to say that those who have a reason or a why in life, they have a how in life. If I have a reason to live, then I'm going to find a way to make that possible. So intentionality is very important for us to build meaning in life. And that's this is the final slide. Kairos, critical choice points and momentous opportunities for deciding whether to risk changing a fundamental aspect of existence. So this kairos, for example, 7 years ago, when my wife and I decided to come here for a second medical opinion, that was a kairos moment. I was not aware of that, to be honest with you. But I had an option. Either I stay in my home country and see what happened when the baby was born, or I come here and I ask for a second opinion. And then my wife and I had to take another decision. Are we going to stay here because she was doing very bad and the baby as well? Are we going to risk your life, the life of the baby? And of course, that has changed completely my life, the life of my family. I am not the same person that I was 7 years ago because of that kairos moment. Becoming a professor in Trinity has been another kairos moment. Being married has been another kairos moment. These are opportunities, moments that they change our existence. But I have also had experiences that they changed me. So, for example, in Mexico, I was victim of assault and violence. Mexico is going through a very difficult time in history. And those had a huge impact on me. I was dealing with PTSD for many years because of the impact of all that violence, right? So these kairos, these are critical choices, critical choice points and momentous opportunities for deciding whether to risk changing a fundamental aspect of existence. And of course, when you make this a conscious decision, when you decide to make the change, it's even more powerful. So I remember being here, but I didn't want to be here. And I remember talking with my wife, and I said, I want to stop this. For the last 3 years of my life, I have been in a place where I don't want to be. I want to be in Mexico, but I'm living here in Chicago, in the United States, and I don't want to live here. But if I go to Mexico, I know that my son will have no opportunities, even though it's the place where I want to live. Therefore, from now on, I decide that I want to live here in Chicago. And I remember I made that decision like 4 years ago, and it was a Kairos moment. It changed my experience completely. I started seeing things in a different way. I started appreciating this place better, the people better, the opportunities better, the seasons, the cold, the weather, the rain, the wind, the friends. And even I start appreciating what I don't have anymore in a different way. My parents, my siblings, my friends, my hometown. But since that moment, things have become different because it was a Kairos moment. It was a decision that I made. Existential guilt. It is self-condemnation for having abdicated or responsibility to become a genuine human and not just a ghost of a person. A mother called me the other day and she said, I don't know what to do with my son. He's 21 years old. He's not in college. He's neither working. I cannot afford to pay college. And he blames me that I don't pay college to him. And he blames me that I have overprotected him. And I have. However, I was abandoned by his father. And the only option that I had was to work as a waitress, which I still do that today. And I was not with him, but I was trying to overprotect him even when I was not with him. And I know that I have done wrong. And now because he's in that place where he doesn't work, he doesn't go to school, he doesn't have friends, he doesn't have a girlfriend, he's depressed. And he's throwing the things that I have at home. He's punching the walls, the doors, and he's damaging them. He's furious. He attacks me verbally, but he attacks me verbally. And she said, but it's my fault. And I said, that's very interesting. And I said to her, I thought that you were a hero. And she said, what? I said, yeah, I thought that you were a hero. Why are you saying that? And I said, because what you have done is a heroic action. Not a perfect action, but a heroic one. The father abandoned you and him. And you did not abandon him. You keep him when he was little. You didn't give him in adoption. You didn't give him to someone else, or you didn't leave him in the street. That happens in my home country. People, they go and throw their babies in trash cans. It's crazy. It's crazy. But you decide to work hard as a waitress. And because you didn't know what to do with your absence, you overprotect him. And that was harmful for him. And I understand that he's in pain. But I also understand that he's fortunate that he had you, that you provide food to him, a shelter, school for him. But now he's 21 years old and he's blaming you about his miserable life. Well, that's existential guilt on his side too. He doesn't know how to be a real human being. He's so afraid of being abandoned that he doesn't know how to interact with other humans to avoid the abandonment of the father again. He doesn't know how to be responsible, so it's better to blame the mother about it. Existential guilt is that experience that we have when We know that we need to take responsibility in our life, that it's us the problem, that it's us the one who has to change, but we decide to blame the system, blame the structures of power, blame others, blame my dad, my mom, the government, the church, the this and that, instead of me. And this adult man of 21 years old, he's playing video games all day long because he doesn't want to take responsibility in his life. He's a ghost of a person. All right, adjustment and transcendence. So be with others and be in the world without having to be owned by others, or having to be owned by others or both out by the world. Consciousness and choice directs a mature person. So we face this constantly, adjustment or transcendence. And existentialists, they are not telling you live in isolation. That's non-being. They are telling you you have to learn to live with others without losing yourself. You have to learn to be with others without stopping being with yourself. And that's transcendence. And finally, the last concept, meaning in life. One does not discover meaning in life. One creates meaning out of life. Humans are inveterate meaning makers. The question is not what the meaning of life is. It is not a riddle to be solved. Meaning is an ongoing process to be individually created and fully experienced. The meaning of our existence emerges out of what we choose to stand for. So people blame their circumstances, blame their parents, blame the government, blame. But they don't realize that whatever their circumstances are, they have opportunities, and especially an opportunity to build meaning. There was this amazing philosopher, his name was Epictetus, a philosopher from the Stoic school in Rome. He was born as a slave and he lived as a slave. However, he decided not to be a slave in his soul, in his mind. He educated himself. He worked himself, both physically and mentally. He became intelligent. Even though he was illiterate, he gave himself education. He learned to read, he learned to write. He decided not to be a slave in his mind. However, he was not able to change being a slave for his owner. There's this day that his owner started punishing him, and he's smashing his leg. And Epictetus turned and says to him, "You're gonna break my leg." And the owner, he felt upset, and he continued, and he finally broke his leg. He was crippled, he couldn't walk again, and he didn't work as a slave anymore. It was useless to have him as a slave anymore. So his owner, what did is that he gave him freedom. And guess what happened? He became the most important philosopher of his time. Not only of his time, he is still having an influence in people such as Nelson Mandela. He was reading him. He was known as the Socrates of Rome because he decided to make meaning even in that situation. Viktor Frankl is going to tell you in his book that in the concentration camp, there were people who they decide that even in the midst of that suffering, their life had purpose and meaning. For example, helping others in the concentration camp. And he found something very interesting. Those who build purpose and meaning, they were the ones with less chances to be killed by the Nazis. It's amazing. Or think about this young man, Malcolm X. He was a thief. He was a little gangster. He was doing things here and there, robberies, attacking people, until he was caught and he was put in jail. And there in jail, he had to ask himself, what is the purpose of my life? He had a kairos moment. What am I going to do with my existence? Am I going to continue in this path? Or I'm going to do something valuable with the time that I have been given? Remember that we talk about the givens, right? That we talk about how this existential anxiety, there are these existential givens, right? So he was wondering, what am I going to do? And he educated himself. He became a religious man. He educated himself. And the boy who came into jail never came out of that jail, because what came out of that jail was a man educated, transformed, with purpose and meaning. And, well, you know the rest of the story. So that is existentialism, guys. And I think I'm going to stop here. I have talked a lot. But I want you to have in mind existential psychology, which is the first of the three models that we're going to talk. Existential psychology, humanistic psychology, and positive psychology. It's a profound way of thinking life, human experience, human nature, reminding us that we have both the possibility for good and for evil, that inside of us, our nature, or human nature, is like that yin yang that we were saying, with lights and shades, the possibility for authenticity and inauthenticity, for flourishing in life or for stagnating, suffering, being stuck in life. I hope that you like this share of existentialism, and I apologize because this recording has been way longer than what I was thinking. I hope to see you soon, and I'm going to be waiting for your work, your papers. See you soon.